For the next few years, fortune threw money and applause my way. I had arrived. My judgment and ideas were followed by many to the tune paper of millions. The great boom of the late 20s was seething and swelling. So everybody's doing well. The great boom means everybody is doing rather well. Drink was taking an important and exhilarating part of my life. There was loud talk in the jazz places and uptown. Everyone spent in the thousands and chattered in the millions. Scoffers could scoff and be damned. I made a host of fair-weathered friends. So people were laughing at him, and he didn't care. He said, let them be damned. When they talk about fair-weathered friends, people that lived in New York, vacationed in Florida in the winter. My drinking assumed more serious proportions, continuing all day and almost every night. The remonstrances of my friends terminated in a row, and I became a lone wolf. So we saw Bill Wilson turning to alcohol when he felt lonely, and now we see alcohol is beginning to make him lonely. There were many unhappy scenes in our sumptuous apartment. There had been no real infidelity, for loyalty to my wife, helped at times by extreme drunkenness, kept keeping me out of those scrapes. Bill Wilson was a womanizer, unfortunately. In 1929, I contracted golf fever. We went at once to the country, my wife to applaud, while I started out to overtake Walter Hagen. And Walter Hagen was the golf champion between the year 1914 and 1929. He was like the Tiger Woods of today. Liquor caught up with me much faster than I came up behind Walter. I began to be jittery in the morning. So now we can see clearly Bill Wilson is having a physical addiction to alcohol. Golf permitted drinking every day and every night. It was fun to carom around the exclusive course which had inspired such awe in me as a lad. Looks like Bill Wilson has everything going for him, right? I acquired the impeccable coat of a tan one sees upon the well-to-do. The local banker watched me whirl fat checks in and out of his till with amused skepticism. Abruptly in October 1929, all hell broke loose on the New York Stock Exchange. After one of those days of inferno, I wobbled back from a hotel bar to a brokerage office. It was 8 o'clock at night. 5 hours after the market closed. The ticker still clattered. I was staring at an inch of the tape which bore the inscription XYZ minus 32. It had been 52 that morning. I was finished, and so were many of my friends. The papers reported men jumping to death from the towers of high finance. That disgusted me. I would not jump. I went back to the bar. My friends had dropped several million since 10 o'clock, so what? Tomorrow was another day. As I drank, the old fierce determination to win came back. So, in spite of the consequences, Bill Wilson still sees a benefit in drinking. His friends were committing suicide, and that disgusted him. Money was their god. But none of that mattered to him. He failed to humble himself. Next morning, I telephoned a friend in Montreal. That is Dick Johnson. He's a broker as well. He had plenty of money left, and I thought I had better go to Canada. By the following spring, we were living in our accustomed style. I felt like Napoleon returning from Elba, No Saint Helena for me. But drinking caught up with me again, and my generous friend had to let me go. And this time we stayed broke. Bill Wilson blew it. His friend gave him a lot of money, and they were living in their accustomed style. But again, he failed to humble himself, and he has a physical addiction to alcohol, and he blew it. We went to live with my wife's parents. I found a job, then lost it, as the result of a brawl with a taxi driver. Mercifully, no one was to guess that I was to have no real employment for 5 years or hardly draw a sober breath. This is a power-driven guy, but you can't keep the real alcoholic from drinking. Bill's separated from the heavy drinkers. He's a real alcoholic. My wife began to work in a department store, coming home exhausted to find me drunk. I became an unwelcome hanger-on at brokerage places. So we're seeing the progression rather quickly, and Bill Wilson has lost the choice in drink. And he's starting to become jittery in the morning, and watch what happens now. Liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity. Bathtub gin. 2 bottles a day, and often 3 got to be routine. Sometimes a small deal would net a few $100s, and I'd pay my bills at the bars and delicatessens. Lois was working in a department store for maybe $30 a week, and Bill wasn't even helping her to pay rent. As a matter of fact, he was stealing out of her pocketbook. And small deals would net him a few $100s where he would pay his bar tab. This went on endlessly, and I began to waken up very early in the morning shaking violently. So we see Bill beginning to get jittery, and now he's shaking violently. A tumbler full of gin followed by a half a dozen bottles of beer would be required if I were to eat any breakfast. So Bill couldn't even eat till he had alcohol in his system. Nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation, and there were periods of sobriety which renewed my wife's hope. Here's where problems get worse. In one itty-bitty paragraph, right? Gradually, things got worse. The house was taken over by the mortgage holder. My mother-in-law died. My wife and my father-in-law got ill. Those are pretty big problems for that little paragraph. And they're happening to Bill in rapid succession. Then I got a promising business opportunity. Stocks were at the low point of 1932, and I had somehow formed a group to buy. I was to share generously in the profits. Then I went on a prodigious bender, and that chance vanished. So we're beginning to see Bill's obsession. He has a moment of clarity, though. I woke up. This had to be stopped. I saw I could not so much as take one drink. I was through forever. But before then, I had written lots of sweet promises. But my wife happily observed that this time I meant business. And so I did. And shortly afterward, I came home drunk. So Bill has no mental defense against the first drink. And he means it every time. He's got a strange mental blank spot. And we're going to stop there and pick it up in the next video.